there has been a World Cup squad announced, and we'll break it up into two parts. One part, obviously, a bit about Ben Stokes' return, and the other part will be about the squad in general. I'll just run through the squad quickly. It's provisional, but Butler, Moeen Ali, Gus Atkinson, Johnny Bairstow, Sam Curran, Liam Livingston, Dawid Malan, Adil Rashid, Joe Root, Jason Roy, Ben Stokes, Reece Topley, David Willey, Mark Wood, and Chris Wokes. Question from the Patreon came in from Dennis, and it was quite simply, was it correct to leave Harry Brook out of the World Cup squad?
Yeah, I was reading an article about this, and I get where they're coming from in terms of leaving Brook out. I think I read that the last time he played a 50-over game for Yorkshire or something like that was like 2019 or something like that. He really hasn't played that much 50-over cricket because he's often been picked up in T20 franchise leagues, or he's been playing more Red Bull stuff for Yorkshire. And then obviously with the 50-over competition in this country running at the same time as the 100 for the last 3 years, Harry Brook's obviously playing in the 100, which is where kind of his lack of 50-over experience, I guess, comes from. And there's obviously less international series that are ODIs, like bilateral ODI series in the men's game now. It tends to be, if they can squeeze in a T20 series, then they will, and if they can tag on an ODI series at the back end, then potentially so be it. So yeah, I get where they're coming from in leaving Brook out, and there's no question about him being part of ODI cricket for England in the future. But while you've got someone of Stokes' calibre that was keen to be back in, and with Brook obviously only being a batter and not really being a bowling option either, throwing Stokes in, it's rumoured that he's going to be batting at 3, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
With what he's done for England in white ball cricket, obviously he was pretty much the reason why they won the final back in 2019. I think if he wants to play, then you've got to give him a crack, I think, haven't you? And just looking at the balance of the squad as well, obviously, I think they put in choosing Milan over Brook as well because he's left-handed, and little things like that, I guess, to try and combat matchups and things like that a little bit differently. But that's, yeah, I guess you feel a little bit for Harry Brook, but it's not the be-all and end-all. Like, he knows he'll be playing in ODI, the next ODI World Cup after this one. Do you know what I mean? And the one after that. Give the old guys a go while they're still kicking around, I guess. When you've got Stokes, you just never know what's going to happen when you've got Stokes on the pitch, do you? Because he does things that are bonkers that other people can't do. That's not to say Harry Brook can't, but yeah.
No, I agree. I do agree with you. I mean, you can only take, 15 anyway, so you are limited. You've got a hard cap on it. Otherwise, I'm sure like Harry Brook probably would have been that 16th player. But when you look at the squad, there aren't really many what you would call just like out-and-out batters in that team, if that makes sense. Like, you've got Butler and Bairstow, who, if you like wicket keeping, you could call them all-rounders. But other than like Malan, Root, and Roy are your 3 kind of like specialist batters, if that makes sense. Whereas everybody else, and I think England, the way that they've kind of set up with this white ball team, particularly going to India, to have that flexibility with options with the ball, with Curran, Livingston, Moeen, Adil Rashid, Ben Stokes, David Willey, Mark Wood, Chris Wokes, etc. Like, you've got a bunch of lads there that can do both. That can not only extend your batting lineup, but then also kind of increase your bowling options as well. And as you just said, Harry Brook doesn't do that as much as we've enjoyed seeing him bowl during this Ashes series. It's not. I don't necessarily think it's the type of bowling that's going to go particularly well in white ball cricket. And as you say, he's going to get opportunities in the future. And it probably was that kind of final decision after Joss Butler sent the old text through to Ben Stokes about World Cup ? Laughing emoji, and he's come back and just said lol with a thumbs up or whatever. You put Ben Stokes in a final. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? 2019, the T20 World Cup final, and I think the semi-final as well. It he's almost like you could plonk him in there and you could turn around and go, well, he's probably going to get 80. There's a great chance he'll take a hat trick. He'll take a screamer of a catch somewhere on the boundary, and all of a sudden we've won the World Cup just because it's Ben Stokes. And that's literally it. Ben Stokes just does Ben Stokes things. And how you could ever come to a conclusion where you turn around and went, nah, actually, we don't really want that. Okay, it might not work in the first game, might not work in the second game, but you can bet your bottom dollar when the chips are down and that final comes around or that must-win game comes about, that bloke's going to walk out there with the weight of the world or the weight of the country on his shoulders, and he's just going to go, yeah, just another day in my life. I'll do this for you. Don't worry about it, lads.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And he'll probably take one of his Red Bulls or whoever it is he's sponsored by, and he'll be like, well, it gives me wings. I can do what I like. That's what that energy drink does, isn't it? Or something like that. Yeah, obviously it's good to see him back in and around and wanting to be a part of defending the 50 over World Cup later on this year.
Yeah,
it's all come around so fast.
Yeah, there was some kind of plan and some kind of talk about him going off for a knee operation, wasn't there, over the winter to make sure that he was kind of fit and ready to go for the for January for the India tour. And like, I won't steal it, but I've been on commentary with Mel Farrell over the last couple of games at Northants, and like her kind of take on it was actually you could look at this decision to come and play the World Cup as maybe the knee issue is actually kind of inoperable, if that makes sense. And it kind of gets to a point and it's like, well, we might just have to manage this and get as much out of Ben as what Ben can kind of manage before there is literally nothing left. Obviously in a sporting kind of like factor anyway. I'm like, it's not a case of like once he's done with cricket he's not going to be able to move, but it kind of you could potentially draw that conclusion and say, well, actually 6 months off with an operation might have sorted the knee out, and you think, oh, that could work, but actually maybe it's not even, maybe you can't fix it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think he struggled with it for a while, hasn't he? So I guess he's at that point in his career as well where it could set him back even longer if he's to have the operation and then potentially not even be ready to bowl or whatever when it comes around to that India series. And if he's turned down the opportunity to play at a World Cup, to just play a Test series in India, or not to just play a Test series, but to bowl in a Test series in India, say, I guess, I don't know, Joss is looking at it as a potential opportunity missed, and he wants his left-handed World Cup winning ally to be there and a part of his team. And I'm sure if Stokes wasn't in a position where he thought it was going to be such a detriment to his knee to go out there and play just as a batter in those games, then he wouldn't do it. But we know what type of character he is. He fights through whatever it is that he's dealing with, doesn't he? So, I mean, yeah, fair play to him. Yeah, hope the guys go well. Good to see Gus Atkinson get a first call up as well. He's been impressive, hasn't he?
Someone said to me, it was like, oh, what if you thought of Gus Atkinson kind of in the 100 and you're excited to see him play in the white ball stuff? And I think my response was, I've not really seen him bowl much at all. Like I haven't watched a great deal of Surrey's. And you know what? I think a lot of that is to do with when the cricket's on, I'm kind of commentating on the cricket anyway. So, and plus there's so many highlights to go through. I must have seen like a Twitter highlights package or something at some point, but I couldn't really tell you that much about him other than just I assume the fact he bowls rockets. Seems like a sensible kind of conclusion to make when it comes to this bowling stock. But yeah, what's your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I saw him a bit last season when Northants played against Surrey in a Red Bull game. And I remember watching him run in thinking, like, this guy's got a really tidy, repeatable action, like bowls a decent lick, can obviously move it around as well. Pretty accurate, like was always asking questions of the batters, and that was in Red Bull cricket, and he seems to have done pretty well in the T20 competition and also in the 100 so far. And obviously he's had a good couple of years of performing for Surrey behind him now, a good couple of seasons even, and to be one of the main bowlers in that Surrey attack is quite something in itself, I think. So, I mean, I feel like he's deserved his opportunity, and he bowls pretty quick. And, the England selectors obviously like him. I think Luke Wright spoke pretty highly about him. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he's if he gets a go and he's rotated in that kind of seam attack that England have got. As you mentioned, we've only taken 15. You'd imagine that some of the games being thick and fast, the seam attack might rotate a bit in order to manage players and look after old Mark Wood.